Hello and welcome to our sixth episode of podcast series for the community's Grand Cycle 8 under 8 minutes. I am your host Chinmay Kumar from the Asia Pacific Regional Learning Hub. In our previous episodes, we have learned about disease priorities, human rights, gender and integration. Today, we are focusing on a component of RSSH prioritization guidance that determines the long-term sustainability of local health responses, community system strengthening, and funding sustainability. As international funding shift, we need to know how to keep community-led responses alive. To help us navigate this critical mechanism, I am joined by Olga Rychkova, Senior Technical Advisor for Community Response and System Strengthening at the Global Fund CRG Department. Olga, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Olga, when we talk about long term sustainability, the reality is that countries transition away from global fund, right? And then community networks suddenly start facing funding gaps because they don't get the quick response from the national systems. To help our network navigate this critical transition, my first question to you is what do we mean by transition pathways in Grand Cycle 8?
This is these are great questions. Um, so I will be talking about what can we do to support transition within the community's system strengthening module in in resilient and sustainable systems for health, RSSH module, as you started explaining. So what you're talking about is real. The sustainability pressures on communities are critical and they intensify. And at the same time, the pressure on communities to keep delivering quality services is also intensifying. So it's a little bit of a double pressure, right? Reducing funding, continued pressure to deliver. So for that reason, the focus on sustainability, transition, and integration are kind of critical focus areas or critical priorities, or as we call them, strategic shifts for GC8. If you are looking at community system strengthening module in RSSH, you will see that the community systems still remain critical and foundational. You will see the familiar community system modules there, focusing on community-led monitoring, on capacity building of community organizations, and on community engagement. There are, however, slight changes focusing specifically on transition and sustainability. For instance, it's without strong investments in community systems, we cannot really expect community organizations to keep deliver quality services and or high impactful advocacy. But what does it mean for transition? Prioritize investing in community organizations systems so that they can participate in domestic financing options like social contracting. Do community organizations need registration? Do they need to get accredited? Do they need to have something else in place that will make them more eligible for domestic financing? When you're talking about community engagement, it's not just engaging in Global Fund owned processes, but it is also engaging in the national or subnational decision making. And those are the places where very often decisions are being made about how domestic resources are invested in community responses. So as part of, if you are engaging in your national policies, make sure that there are also domestic funding flows that can support community service delivery. So those are kind of critical things to consider. And of course, integration remains another critical area. We all want services to be equitable and equally accessible for anyone. We do not want to have a parallel community system because it also, the experience shows it will not be sustainable in the long run. But it might make different things. If you were a community provider, your future might be looking very different if system becomes more integrated. Your role as a community organization might change. Instead of being primarily involved in service delivery, you might actually be involved more in accountability, in monitoring, or maybe in training peer cadres who could then be hired by the formal health system. So this is critical to start thinking about as you're preparing for GC8 and also using the community systems module in RSSH to plan for those investments. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Olga. That makes the concept of a transition pathways very clear. But when we talk of a pathway, I guess it only work if there is a domestic funding to sustain it and to support it. Moving to my second question, what are the requirements for domestic resource mobilization in this cycle? What do you?
This is where we will need to. This should not be just to communities. There needs to be a bigger and more holistic approach. But communities do have a role to play. I already spoke a little bit about the role of community advocates, what we often refer to as community engagement, focusing not just on the advocating with the global fund where to invest, but also using the national platforms, the kind of national key decision-making spaces to make sure that there are a national health budget with a dedicated line to invest in service delivery through community organizations. And that budget line is sustainable. It's not linked to co-financing. So it's not used to meet the donor requirements, but it's actually a national health budget, which is not dependent on whether the donor continues investing in the country or is a transition country and donor moves out. It also means that there needs to be procurement mechanisms that work for communities. A lot of social contracting works on the base of tenders. Those tenders are very often short-term, 1 year. So again, communities can advocate and use community monitoring or other mechanisms to say, these setups do not work for us. They are too short-term, the barriers are too high. This is how we recommend making this more accessible. For instance, having multi-year framework agreements where an organization can be contracted for more than 1 year, but then have the payments done on an annual basis depending on results. So there are different mechanisms to engage in that. But yes, it's important to use the GC8 to start thinking about what works, how can we better advocate for it, how can we learn from our peers in other regions or other countries, and really use this grant cycle to invest in that sustainability for communities. It's really critical. Over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olga. And I feel like, this mechanisms which you just mentioned about is also important, like that it should also actually reach on ground where communities are actively involved, and it is going to help them a lot, right? But there where when it comes to mechanisms, I also want to ask you, like, what practical steps can communities take right now to advance social contracting? Over to you.
Very often it comes to the supply, right? It's demand supply situation. So if I am a government and I know that in this region I have a very high prevalence of TB, for instance, and I need community role to help me address that issue. But I do not see community organizations delivering high quality services and actually meeting that need. So I think what community organizations can do now is what I was talking about earlier, investing in systems. Is organization registered? Is organization accredited and actually can participate in community, in social contracting schemes? But also, are they delivering services that actually can be socially contracted because they are of needed quality, of needed reach, or what is needed for community organizations to be able to deliver that? So this is, again, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. If organization is not invested in, if communities are not invested in properly, of course, they will have limited reach or limited quality because they are operating under a lot of pressure. But I think GC8, again, is an opportunity for us to invest in key community systems, but also identify what is it that community organizations themselves need to be able to pave their own road to sustainability, including through making sure social contracting actually works.
Thank you so much, Olga. We sincerely thank you for those sharp insights. For us, transition pathways and social contracting are the core operational mechanisms that protect and sustain our community networks for the future. And we should really focus on getting things done. Let's ensure, like, that our hard won health gains are maintained long term, and we just don't lose our momentum. I will request you all to please share this video with CSS advocates, civil society leaders, and country networks, so that everyone stays connected and informed for Grand Cycle 8. Also requesting to subscribe our YouTube page as well as our newsletter, so that you get regular updates. I'm Chinmay Kumar. Let's ensure we build this cycle with us and for us. I look forward to seeing you in our next 8 minutes. Thank you so much.